All righty. Hope everybody's having a good morning, or depending where you're at, a good afternoon. And if you're watching this at a later time, I hope you're having a good day and you enjoy the show. If y'all have questions, both viewers watching actively live, go ahead and start getting them in as we're going along, because we'll cover questions either in the moment or at the end. And those of y'all that watch after the fact, leave comments in the or leave questions in the comments, and I will do my best to get them to Mr. Todd and get them answered. And that way y'all can get some feedback on your input. So none other, let me go ahead and introduce our guest for the day. It is none other than Mr. Smalenberg. He was just as I've learned in researching, getting ready for the show, just a outstanding Marine, and especially a Recon Marine. He served in, if I'm not mistaken, all three of the Recon Battalions, and then 1st and 2nd Force Recon, and worked a little bit with USASOC, and just, I'll mess everything up. We'll get into that. It's a lot of fun what we're going to get into. But Mr. Todd, I hope you're doing well. We're glad you could join us, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Sounds good to me. Appreciate you having me on.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we always kind of like to ask the guys, especially the Vietnam era guys, because WW2 in Korea, but you being a GWOT guy and actually a little bit before that, would be interesting to hear. Did you have any family military service in your family?
Oh, my whole family. My dad served 26 years in the Air Force. And then both sisters married B-52 pilots. And then I was the youngest. I was the baby. I went in the Marines. And a couple of years after me, my brother ended up going in the Marines into the reserves. And then he transferred over to the Army and was in the Special Forces. So,
holy cow, you weren't lying about family. Even your sister married into a B-52, a buff pilot. That's crazy. Wow. Interesting. You mentioned your father. I think I found a photo floating around on your Facebook. Is this your father in Korea?
That is my dad in Korea. Correct.
Outstanding. Wow. And was what was his job in the Air Force?
He would tell you he was a chairborne ranger. He worked in what was called the CBPO on military big SAC base, and then he was in charge of the promotion and testing. So he never got a speeding ticket on base. He got pulled over, but he never get.
Yeah. I can imagine he had it made with that job.
Yeah, he was well known throughout. So
that's excellent. We always love hearing about family military history in you guys, and but it's also amazing the military families and y'all carrying on the legacy. But it's also to see guys that had literally no interaction with the military finding their ways into the special forces, SOG, back when we're talking to SOG guys or what have you. It's just a luck of the draw or who you happen to encounter. It's very interesting.
That is true.
Absolutely. And where was Mr. Todd born and raised?
Well, being a military brat, I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, but I only spent like 10 months there. My dad got orders overseas, unaccompanied, of course, between Korea and Vietnam. And he took off, and we came back home to Michigan, a little small farm town called Richmond, and stayed there for the year he was overseas. And then we got orders to the Philippines. So we were stationed over for 3 years. I went to kindergarten there at Clark Air Force Base. And then we got PCS to northern Michigan, a big SAC base called Worksmith in Oscoda. And I went from first grade to my senior year when I graduated. So I consider Oscoda my home.
Wow. You were literally all over the world. That's I always love hearing stories of the military brats. My dad was a military brat from Germany to France to all over the United States as well. He loved Germany, but I always love hearing about you military brats and y'all's adventures. And I just went blank on a great question as you were talking about that. hate to do that, but
No, you're good.
as we're going here, gosh, early morning blanks. So with you being somewhat of a military brat, changing schools, being overseas for some portions of that, were you a big athletics guy? Sports?
Yeah, we all did sports growing up. I played all sports on the base leagues, and then wrestled from fifth grade up to my junior year when I had a knee injury, and then I did co-op my last year, so I graduated early, and I left for boot camp from there.
Excellent. Yeah. Wow. You wrestlers that are a different breed. I've been doing some jiu-jitsu the past 2 years, and
Nice.
we'll have some wrestlers come in every once in a while, and my God almighty. With you being traveling all over the world as a military brat, you're literally surrounded, and I can only imagine you're getting to see more, not just Air Force, but you're probably coming across Army, maybe Marine Corps, Navy, and all of that. Did you have what brought you into wanting to join the military? What first crossed your mind with it?
From our parents, they both taught us, one is patriotism, love of country, selfless service. So for me, it was just real easy. From an early age, I knew I was going to join. So from an early age, I know I was going to join the Marines. So specifically.
Wow, the Marines with family of Air Force and all that, but you knew you wanted to be on the ground. You were wanting to fight.
I did. So I went guaranteed infantry because I wanted to be a recon Marine. That's what I wanted to be since I was about 10 years old.
Holy cow! And did you know about recon at an early age?
Yeah, I did. So when I was 8 years old is when I decided I was going to be a Marine. I seen my first Marine in the base exchange with my mom, and he was in full dress blues. And I was used to the Air Force guys, and I'm like, "What is that?" She's like, "That's Marine, honey." I said, "Whatever that is, that's me." And then I started, going to the library and picking up books and reading, and then I found out about what recon Marines were. So I set my goal on that.
Seeing those dress blues, man, is life changing for a young man. If you've never seen the dress blues or the officers, and they're all black with the Marmaluke, is it the Marmaluke sword?
The Marmaluke sword. Yep.
In magazines and posters, Dad would hang it up. I vividly remember that as my childhood, and just thinking, my God, what a recruiting poster that is.
Yep. It is an attention getter. So.
And I can imagine you're in high school in the 70s, 80s?
In the 80s. 79 to 83 is when I went to high school and graduated.
I can imagine, maybe not yet with Doc Norton's and Colonel Finlanson's book, but I imagine there's some other recon-oriented Marine literature out at this point in time. Were you reading any books on Vietnam warriors?
Yeah, I was, so just, and then, just the overarching of the Marine Corps. So, when you're reading on that, all of a sudden you find out about recon Marines and you start digging deeper on that. So, okay. And that's all I did throughout, as a kid, just getting myself ready physically and mentally.
Excellent. It's that's another thing I'll say. It seems like, and I'm not saying that some units of the Army don't know the history to a T, because I'm sure they have to learn, but the Marine Corps, it seems like it doesn't matter if it's a MARSOC guy, a Force Recon guy, or just a grunt ground pounder. Seems like the Marine Corps instills Marine Corps history in you guys more so than any other group with their unit history and branch history. It's amazing.
They absolutely do. From the start, from 10 November 1775 to forward, they talk about our lineage, our history, our legacy. So that way, we know it, and we don't want to soil it. We don't want to embarrass it. So
that was another thing of mentioning these men: Dan Daly, Chesty Puller, John Basilone, scout sniper. I'm blanking on his name. Carlos Hathcott. I mean, it's you damn sure don't want to let down men of that caliber and sully the reputation of the Corps with men like that in it. So, wow. Yeah, that's outstanding. I've always loved the installation and just breaking down the Marine Corps did compared to other units, or branches, I should say. Okay, so you have you've graduated high school, and now where and when are you officially joining the Marine Corps?
So 23 March 1983 is when I shipped to recruit training out in San Diego at Marine Corps Recruit Depot.
Wow, in San Diego. That's where my dad went as well. Got his yearbook right back there. Wonderful photos in there. So what I always like asking the guys, especially Marines, what's it like getting off that bus and getting into those yellow footprints?
Well, people tell you, and you think about it, but until you're there, you really don't, realize from the time you get off that bus to the footprints to get in, get your hair cut, and then start going through all the paperwork and issuing your uniforms and everything. So it's that first night is just a blur, because you literally get minuscule sleep. And then you're up going the next day. So it's just, and then you can't move fast enough. You can't send off loud enough. And I was lucky I had people, prepare me for that. So I just realized until we all get broken down and we start working as a team, it's going to be everyone gets punished up until then. Mm-hmm. So it was, for me, boot camp wasn't hard. I enjoyed it. My last name's Smalenberg, and I was smiling all the time. So the other platoons would call me Smalenberg, and I get in trouble for that all the time. And just, I just wanted to be there. That's my life, goal at that time was just to earn the title Marine.
I can imagine. I got stories from my dad, and of course, different era of Vietnam, but that was back when I guess you could say. Hands on recruits was a little less stringent, shall we say, from some of the stories I've heard. But I can imagine in the 80s, it was still pretty tough. Pretty tough. Was.
I lived on the quarterdeck. I got thrashed because of me smiling and just, everyday thing. But they did do hands-on. They waited till a little bit later where the unity was there. So, one of our drill instructors actually got busted the next series because he started touching them in the first phase instead of the second and third like he did us. And there's no loyalty and unity there. And when they had a bruise on a chest, they asked how it happened. And old drill instructor Sergeant Carter was no longer employed, unfortunately.
Ah, man. Yeah, you definitely can't come right out of the chute going full blast. You got to wait a little bit at least.
Yeah, that's not the optimal way to go about it. It is a technique, not the preferred technique. So. Absolutely.
So with you not having really much issue with basic training, are you shooting pretty well, qualifying expert? Are you and is after boot camp, is it the School of Infantry before you start finding out exactly what pipeline you're going to start hitting? Or
yeah, because you go to the School of Infantry to Infantry Training School for the infantry side, and then whatever your designator, rifleman, machine gunner, mortarman, you get selected for that. You start training. For us, then we got screened, and we passed the screening. There's 6 of us that were fortunate enough for out of the gate go right to 3rd Recon Battalion from ITS. So,
wow. Okay, that's fantastic. And now, was that literally your first encounter with Marine Recon? Was when you came to got that initial screening right there?
Yeah, that's it. The guys out of 1st Recon Battalion came out and screened us, and then the 6 of us. Out of all that got screened and did the selection, only 6 of us were passed, and we got orders.
Was that a pretty tough screening
It
process?
was, yeah, nothing compared to once we got there though. So
Oh yeah.
then the real screening started, and it didn't stop until I retired. So
Just a mere taste. Just a mere taste.
very much so.
And was Third Recon, where were they located at this point in time?
Okinawa.
Oh, on Okinawa. Wow.
Yeah.
And what exactly what's it like for shall we say a new guy going over to Okinawa, checking in with Third Recon? What's going on?
And being put in open base squad bay where you shared a communal head with the deep recon platoon guys. So all these senior NCOs lived in front of us, and so we became their daily thrashing, enjoyment. So they woke us up that first night when they got back from the E Club about 2:33 in the morning, and kept us up for quite a while doing incentive training. And then we got up we didn't go to bed. Then we went on our first run the next day. It was like a 7-miler, and went to the pool and had a swim qual, WSQ, water safety qualification. And so that was a smoker day, and that was just starting, and then it just proceeded from there.
Now, is pool competency, would that be like what my dad would call back in the day drown proofing?
Well, you do that's part of what we do on our screening on the drown proofing, and then just so much more. That's probably our biggest attrition rate is the pool, where we lose the majority of the Marines and Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsmen candidates is the pool phase.
I can imagine. I've that great website. It might be the excuse me again. Gosh, I don't know what's going on with me this morning, but the Marine Recon Foundation does a great, and it might be the Basic Reconnaissance Course also with them, shows some of the instructionals, but they always do the pool comp, or at least a portion of it. And boy, it is, you can see why the pool issue is such an issue for guys. I mean, that is some heavy duty stuff, holding the weights, then being dunked, and the whole McGill is just tough stuff.
It is. It definitely is a intestinal test on you, both physically and mentally.
When you get there and get all of this going, and I guess you're, for a lack of a better term, now a part of 3rd Recon Battalion, is there any ceremony? Is there a special welcome aboard? Not like blood pinning. You've already got wings and all that, I'm sure. But is there any special situation becoming a recon man?
Oh yeah, when we completed our reconnaissance indoctrination program, which was 12 weeks, it was also approved by Headquarters Marine Corps for MOS producing. And we literally had the battalion commander, the battalion sergeant major, who at that time, Terry Wade, helped write the MOS for 0321 MCI manual, and then our battalion surgeon and the deep recon platoon guys. So we went through 12 weeks of living in CTA and NTA and in the ocean. And upon completion, when we were awarded our reconnaissance Marine MOS, we had a big Viking feast. And that was a drunk fest for the weekend. Just all the hamburger and steaks and chicken and beer stacked up. And you drank till you fell asleep, and you woke back up, and you drank and you ate some more for the weekend. So,
wow, what I can only imagine what that is like as a young guy. Well, any guy, but especially a young guy coming in, and this is the welcome into where the big boys are playing, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it was an eye opening. It was the hardest thing I've ever done physically and mentally. Those 12 weeks, because I mean, they did things that people go to jail for today, So, but we were thoroughly trained, and so I'm very, very proud of that. We had one hell of a platoon, and the leadership and everything that we went through really prepared us for the future.
Wow. One of the, I don't think it's in this viewer, but after I had posted that you were coming on and people saw the schools and all of that, I think one of one of the questions was compared to battalion recon indoctrination and getting into recon, how would you describe that to, I guess, well, you don't have personal, but I guess hearing, what would you think that would stack up against like Ranger School, Special Forces Assessment School, and all of that? Is it kind of the same thing, or y'all?
No, because we're all concentrating on the same thing as your field skills, your physical and mental, acuity. So it's a physical and mental challenge piece for SFAS, RAST, in the SMOOs and everything else. They're checking you both physically and mentally, and pushing you to see if you push through those barriers. Because if you let your mind control it, you're gonna stop. Because your body's gonna continue going even when your mind thinks it can't. And you learn that, and so I just, being fortunate enough to work in all four services and in my post retirement life, in working across the spectrum, everyone has their niche, but all of our medals and our mission essential tasks, there's gray areas between it all. So, I mean, some of my best friends, are Rangers and SF and SEALs and controllers and PJs. And so very, very close knit community, small, and the very same mindsets. We're all alpha males. We have to volunteer twice to be able to go through the screening and selection to see if we have what it takes.
Wow. And yes, sir, that whole group you just listed, what a stud group. All of those units, special operation force capability men, that just outstanding group. Yeah, and then I that's what I've heard from most of the guys. It just seems like the first part is seeing if you can withstand it all, and if you can and you're trainable, the training will come later. And once you get in and
the training never stops. So from the get go, you're training. And you're proving yourself on a daily basis. You don't get to rest on your laurels.
That's awesome. I think I heard a Delta guy saying that just because you got in or earning the trident, I think it still said, he's like that you're working to keep that thing every day.
You have to.
Outstanding. And so once you're a member of 3rd Recon and that, what is are you quote unquote put in a platoon on a team to start training, or what's the next step in this pipeline here?
Yeah, that's how it started. So we were put in a platoon. Vast majority of us were all new, so we all went through the same 12 weeks of training. We were broken down into our teams. And we operated like that. And then, we stayed like that for that year. So once we did that, and we went into the Philippines and Korea, Tinian, and a bunch of other places, we were there doing exercises and training with our partner forces.
Wow.
And so just it was a great experience for my first year in the Corps. We went all over the place, and we got to, when you can patrol in the jungle, you can patrol anywhere. When you can communicate in the jungle, you can communicate anywhere. So it really, really sets you up for your future, for our green side skills. That's so, paramount for us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what year is this taking place now that you're officially in and starting to travel with 3rd Recon?
1983 and 1984 was my first.
Excellent. 1983, 1984. And with 3rd Recon is 83, 84. People are going to kill me knowing I love history. Is Desert Storm on the horizon here? So
we had the Beirut bombing.
The Beirut bombing comes first.
Yeah, we had in October, we had the Beirut bombing. So, everyone got spun up on alert from, both East and West Coast and Okinawa, who was going to go and replace the Mao. Charlie Company out of 2nd Recon Battalion lost about 2/3 of a little bit more than that of their platoon in the bombing. So, that's devastating when you lose almost a whole platoon. And so, that was like really the first thing that, I had as an active duty Marine was the Beirut bombing. And then the guys went into Granada from there. And then, we ended mission after that in Beirut. So that was like I guess, a baptism, but we didn't partake. So we just continued doing what we were doing on Okinawa.
Wow. Two parts on that. Sadly asking, did you unfortunately know any of the Marines that passed in the unfortunate attack in Beirut?
I did not. I did not know any of those guys that were killed in that bombing, unfortunately. So I did meet a couple of the guys in the platoon that were survivors because I PCS'd and went to 2nd Recon Battalion from there in '84. So Bernie Matthews was a real good friend back then and still today, still stay in contact with him. And but that was a hard hit on the reconnaissance community when you lose almost a whole platoon.
That and the story behind that, and some that I've heard about wanting to keep the guys out of there is just tragic, just absolutely tragic.
Well, when you walk around with flag safeties, and you're in a combat zone and guys don't even have their weapons, fully loaded, it makes it difficult with that type of mindset, you don't send people to combat and restrain them like that because it will result in travesty and disaster like it did.
Especially with how hot and the way Beirut and Lebanon had been for, forever. I mean, I hate to say it.
Correct. Yep.
Gosh. And that's interesting because you mentioned West Coast, Okie, and East Coast, and that's a thing about the SEAL teams, East Coast, West Coast, and of course Dev Group. What are the geographical setups? What were the West Coast, East Coast teams for the Marines?
You had 1st Recon Battalion and 1st Force on the West Coast at Camp Pendleton, and then 2nd Recon Battalion and 2nd Force at Camp Lejeune. And then 3rd Recon Battalion was in Okinawa. And then we also had Alpha Company, 3rd Recon Battalion, just the sole company in Hawaii. So that was our geographic locations of our active duty units at the time.
Wow. And so what was the deal with, was there just not enough men, or did y'all not need or want 3rd Force back up and running, or?
So no, because that was a reserve company out of Mobile, Alabama.
Oh, they were in Mobile.
Yeah, third Force, and then also you had 4th Force, which you had those guys in Hawaii, and a couple other locations at that time.
Oh, okay. Wow, I did not know that. That is very interesting.
And then 4th Recon Battalion out of San Antonio, the reserve battalion.
San Antonio.
Yep.
Wow. Learning something new like I knew I would every day here. There was a photo I was about to bring. Oh, and I wasn't sure if this was you at the 2nd Recon sign or someone you knew.
No, that's to the right as we're looking at it is Jack Tully. He was one of my – I was in the Alpha Company 1st platoon out of 2nd Recon Battalion. We were all in Alpha Company together. And Jackie, unfortunately, we lost Jackie a couple of years ago.
Oh, God.
Just great guy.
Hate to hear that. Geez, sorry. Very sorry. It's unfortunately the Marine Recon ranks in all wars are starting to thin, much like our SOG and SF men. I hate seeing the updates like that. When
we all do. We just came back from Arlington a couple of weeks ago from burying a friend of mine, a retired sergeant major out of 2nd Force. So good man.
Very sorry to hear that, sir.
I appreciate it.
Daniel, we're going to save that question because I'm almost positive he does. And that question is on my list for later. That's going to be a good one. Okay, so now you have unfortunately experienced the terrible incident at Beirut, spun up, did what y'all could, and you said did you PCS fully over to 2nd Recon
I did.
Battalion?
Yep, I
You
did.
did. Okay. And what exactly is 2nd Recon doing right now?
The same thing, you're doing your what at that time was the MAUs, the Marine Amphibious Units, which are now the Marine Expeditionary Units, the MUs.
Okay, yes.
So back then it was the MAUs. So platoons go out on the MAU for 6-month deployment, forward deployed. Norway cold weather operations, just whatever taskings out of headquarters Marine Corps. Sometimes down to South America and doing things down there with partner forces, host nation forces.
Wow. What would you say? I guess it's a bit early for that. Well, I guess we could do for your battalion days. With your travels, what did you think was your strangest and coolest or best time with a training indigenous or working with a partner force?
Well, you you work with a lot of them. So we worked with several of the Middle East guys, and they're soft guys, and you're kind of like, okay, not so special, And then you find out, a lot of them are princes, they're royalty, and it's like a hobby, So they get all nice kit, and they go out and play, soldier for a little bit here and there, and then they go back and do their average stuff. So, just and then work with other host nations, squared away guys. So it just it's hit and miss. It depends on where you go, but after a while you can we're going here. Okay, I'm expecting this, and it comes to fruition. So just
seems like y'all have a great relationship with the Rock guys.
We do. We've always had a real good relationship with the Rock guys, and then other services, with the Brits and everything else. We have a good relationship with.
Absolutely, the Royal Marine guys and such. Yeah.
The Aussies, just all of them. Whenever we get together and we work together, we have a great relationship. Because a lot of times, again, it comes back down. It's the same mentality. And so, different country, but still same mentality. These are guys that got to volunteer twice, and they want to be there. We don't have a problem with guys wanting to be there like other units do. What we have a problem with is guys go out on libo and do stupid stuff on libo. But we all go through that. So.
Oh yeah, there's a great new podcast, guys. I don't know if y'all have heard of it, or Mr. Todd, you've heard of it, but it's a SEAL, but they have Marines on as well, and it's called Liberty Risk, and it is a outstanding. The title alone lets you know it's good. I recommend it.
I can imagine that would be some good stories.
Jed has 2 great questions here for what we're speaking about. Was 2nd Recon Battalion always at Stone Bay? I was stationed at Lejeune, and there were lots of lore surrounding the unit and the location at that time.
No, we were actually at Onslow Beach, but that's when we were still living in open base squad base, and of course the Marine Corps. After several years, just like at Camp Pendleton when we were up at Camp Talega in the Quonset huts. We were living outdated, so they had to move us in and move us into the barracks. And so, but it was nice because, Onslow Beach and Talega, we were by ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
So, it just, back then, yeah. And our uniform of the day was, surfing freaking sand was, UDT shorts, jungle boots, and our blouses and our covers. And so when we were on the beach or up in Camp Talega, and those are good days.
Don't get better than that, it sounds like.
No, it doesn't, because no one really messed with you. And we just trained and we PT'd and prepared, for whatever taskings come up.
The way they should leave Marine Recon and some of the other units. Let y'all train, work hard, get ready, and do what y'all need to do.
Well, the Marine Corps doesn't like cowboys.
No, I was just fixing to say, every Marine's special. Not saying that isn't particularly true, but we'll learn later that ends up causing a problem. Jed says, a recon Marine told me to try and get on a MEU that would be on a med float. The intent being to go to Portugal. He will know about this port. Every single Marine has heard stories, and he said, I single as in not married, supposedly the most beautiful women in the world were there.
Well, there's so many different countries of beautiful women all over the place. Spain, of course, is one. Greece is another. Ooh. Israel is another. Go up into the Black Sea in the former Soviet Union bloc. There's beautiful women everywhere. Australia, there's. I mean, as a young
Australia, Marine, my God Almighty.
As a young single Marine, highly encouraged to travel as much as you can, get on MEUs and flyaways or special purpose MAGTFs, and go out there and see the world and meet people.
Wow, man, that does sound like it just a young man's dream come true right there.
It's I tell you, it's I'm not saying the military is a career for people, but it's a great stepping stone. Mm. If you can go out there and see different countries and cultures, you get a little bit more appreciation of how truly good we got it here as Americans.
Oh, absolutely. I try and relay that to people all the time. Even, I've the last 2-3 years I was experiencing money trouble and got down in the dumps, and you see the videos of you guys over in Iraq, Afghanistan, or wherever. And, people literally hoping for just getting water or food for that day. Don't worry about getting a phone or whatever. It really puts it in perspective how well it is in this country. Well, even when we think it's what's going on right now, it's still better than any place that you can imagine.
Well, when you live in ignorant bliss, it's easy to sit out there and spout stuff that you get regurgitated from a professor that teaches a bunch of Marxist ideology.
Absolutely.
But until you go and get immersed in it, I'd love to take some Antifa kids and drop them off for Africa for about 90 days and say, good luck. We'll see you on the backside.
You never pick them up again.
Well, it's like Brittany Grenier, right? Remember how she would kneel and everything else? All of a sudden she goes to Russian prison. She gets out thanks to America. And you don't see her kneeling anymore, do you?
No, you actually don't hear very much out of her anymore, to be frank.
Until you get a dose of reality in this world, and it hits you in your face, then you realize it's like, oh, because what these kids are doing today all over this country and the protests that turn violent, go over to another country. Go watch a couple just YouTube videos of German police and others. They don't play around.
No, not at all.
They would shampoo the heck out of those kids, and these kids can run off there and spit in our cops' face and everything else. And, and you just sit back and say, I'm glad I wasn't a cop because I do what their parents didn't do. And I make them go home to their parents and beat them for not beating their butts when they were younger.
Absolutely. The video that everybody needs to see, and I'll leave it at that. I think they tried doing this in Egypt or maybe Jordan, and boy, they yanked them up so quick they didn't even have time to sit down and form the little bonded line to where they couldn't move. Just yoked them up and they were gone.
Yeah,
we have a freedom of speech to do that. Not in this country, you don't.
No, they don't. When they don't play, and I tell you, I've watched guys get snagged up in Turkey and other places, and they came out there some humble boys, because you take things for granted until you don't.
Absolutely. Woo! Yeah. So with you in 2nd Recon right now, y'all are training. What is there anything that y'all have intel wise that you're training specifically for, or is something about to pop up that y'all are spring to action for?
Yeah, no, during that time period, everything was, focused on Russia. So, we were still training for that peer-to-peer against Russia, the tanks coming through the Fulda Gap and having to deal with that. So that was, we used to study all their mechanized, vehicles and their formations and that. So that way, when we were out doing reconnaissance, we could, report exactly what we're seeing. So, that was our main focus was Russia.
Wow. And during your time with second and your previous recon battalion, are you going to be attending any of the shall we say the John Wick schools? Are you going to sniper school or anything, or is that going to come a little bit later in the career?
It comes a little bit later. I went to dive school pretty quick. I ended up going to dive school and at 3rd Recon Battalion, and then so I was a diver when I showed up at 2nd. And then I wasn't at 2nd very long, just a little over a year. I got a knee injury, so I ended up getting out for 2.5 years.
Fully out of the military.
Yeah, I did. I went to college for a year, and then I started looking at jobs, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And so I went through about 7 jobs. Always got a pay raise and an advancement. And I would sit there, look in the mirror and say, this is not what I'm going to do the rest of my life. So I tried a different job. And then one day I woke up and said, man, I know what I want to do the rest of my life. So I went back in and went out to 1st Recon Battalion at Camp Pendleton. And then I was in Alpha Company for 3 years, and then Bravo Company for Desert Storm.
Wow. And were there any issues getting back in?
It was at that time, reaccessions, they only opened it up for a very small portion throughout the year. But I was real fortunate. My old battalion sergeant major was Mech Deck Quantico. He was the senior enlisted at Quantico.
Wow.
And my old battalion commander was the 1st Marine Division commanding general.
Whoa.
So they all wrote letters of recommendation, and Sergeant Major Strzelecki, his best friend was David Summers, who was the Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps. So I had a lot of pull. I was able to get back in. It took me a little bit, but I got back in and then lost rank when I got back in and went out to 1st Recon Battalion.
Wow.
And started back up that ladder again. So
lost rank. I hate hearing that with coming back in. With the few years of college and that and getting back in, what time period are we floating in now?
This is 88.
88.
88. When I got back in and went out to Camp Pendleton. I met my wife when I was out. So we got married right before I came back in. And then our son was born shortly time after that. Our first child was. So
fantastic. Wow, that's excellent. San Diego. Love it. So with how far until you mentioned you were with the Recon Battalion when Desert Storm kicks off with what's it like with this time when our shall we say your or the country's first big engagement in a while is going on? What lets y'all know something's coming? Are y'all getting ready to train? Are y'all spun up all of a sudden? What's going on?
No, it was, no, absolutely. So we're still continuing to train. We're still focused big time on Russia, and then of course Iraq invaded Kuwait. So that was and at the time, Charlie Company, who we considered our desert company, they're the ones that always would go out to the CACs at 29 Palms and everything else. They flew right away with 7th Marines. And then the rest of us, we followed in trace after that over about 2.5 month period. The remainder of the battalion deployed. And then we, of course, got attached to the regimental combat teams. And then a good friend of mine, retired Master Sergeant Troy Mitchell, rest in peace, was murdered after he retired by some gangbangers. He got a D-8 mission. He was the only team out of the 3 teams that literally went and found the second obstacle belt and had the breach point and everything. And he did that on a broken leg too. Troy did. Just great guy. One of the most humblest, professional, nicest, politest guys you'd ever meet.
I only know a little bit about modern day guys, but I've heard that he is probably one of the greatest known recon Marines of the modern era.
He truly is. He's the one that got General Jones to sign the 0321 as a primary MLS. Troy did. He went out He grade structured us and everything else, so that way we would never, stagnant for promotions. And then him and Joe Setlin also built out of the Commandant's discretionary fund and went and got all the billets and built Detachment 1, which was the test bed for MARSOC out of us, because we built MARSOC, the Reconnaissance Marines did. A lot of people don't want to talk about that, especially the officer corps, but it was 0321s that built MARSOC on our backs. And we took that out of Hyde, so that hurt the MOS there for a couple of years after that. So we called Troy the godfather of the 0321. So just a great guy, great wife and his sons. Just unfortunate what happened to him, because it should have never happened to him. He deserved better than that. That's for sure.
After all the dangerous stuff he does, he comes home to some garbage bags.
Yep, yeah. Absolutely.
I think I've got several photos, and when I show them, maybe he will be in one of them, and we can put a name to the face, and I can start sharing a little bit about him, because I'd love to see what he looked like, where I can share some stuff on him. He sounds like he was a hell of a man.
He absolutely was. He absolutely was.
Wow. Jed was curious about, did you ever go to, he actually had two, skip the first one, sorry. What, if any, significant difference did you notice between 1st and 2nd Recon Battalion? I know there would be some environmental differences. What was the difference in ocean temperature significant? Sorry, guys.
No. Well, the Pacific is cold. So out on the West Coast there, the ocean is a lot colder. So when we're doing all of our water work, no matter what time of the year, but we like to do our water work in February and March, which was really not a good idea, but we did. So those environmentals, and then just the different types of mission sets. When you're at closer to the flagpole on the East Coast, you get a lot of last minute taskings to where 1st Recon and 1st Marine Division and 1st MAF, it's very regimented in their workups and everything. So you're not doing a lot of ad hoc like you do out of Lejeune, which is good, because then you really get some good workups for your MU deployment, special purpose MAGTFs or flyaways, whatever you're doing. So I enjoyed all my battalion time, but out of all my battalion time, I would say 1st, because I did Desert Storm was 1st. We did some counter drug operations. We were the 1st DOD unit at that time. And then later on, I came back as the senior enlisted battalion operations chief. We deployed to Fallujah, redeployed back in 04 after 03's deployment. We were in Fallujah, and that was probably the most intense ground fighting. That 7.5 months in Fallujah at that time. That was pure Indian country at that time. And my guys just crushed it. I was so proud of them because they slayed a lot of dudes that year.
Fallujah, I mean, that's all I've ever heard about in modern warfare, and especially with the Marines, is Fallujah was hell on earth. That and Ramadi were absolute hell on earth.
Yeah, once they did Fallujah, then everything focused into Ramadi. But Ramadi was a lot of action. We split the battalion. So we had some classified ops we were doing, and we had guys out there, and they were rolling in between Fallujah and Ramadi and out to the Syrian border and doing great things. And then we became the raid force for M&F West at that time. So just a lot going on that year.
Wow. 2 questions along with Jed's coming back up. Mine is a bit silly compared to what you just said. But we've heard from some of the SEAL guys from podcasts and other information about where they're at in San Diego, Coronado, and how dirty nowadays the water is and how dudes get sick and all kinds of stuff during buds. Were y'all in that same area dealing with Mexican runoff into the water y'all were training in?
Yeah, because we used to be down in Coronado before we moved to school up to Camp Pendleton. So We had the East and West Coast at the time. You had ARS at Fort Story, and then you had BRC down there in Coronado. So, we all dealt with those environmental issues. And the guys still go down to Coronado, part of the training at BRC out of Camp Pendleton now. They'll go down there and do some of their amphib work. So you're always dealing with that from the runoff from the Mexican side and just everything that goes on when you have a high population center like they do there in Southern California.
Oh yeah. Wow. I was amazed when I saw that literally right down the way. It's just straight out of the pipe.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it goes back to third world countries, man. Don't know how they don't have indoor plumbing and running water. They have wells in the village. And, so I remember one time in the Philippines, we were doing a stream crossing out of water. And that's when we had the iodine tabs, right? So we filled up our canteens, put the iodine tabs, shaked it, let it sit for 20 minutes, and we're moving. And also we passed the village after we probably downed the canteen, and they got huts right off the water and they're doing their thing. And we're like, oh, nice, so.
Man, that's I heard a few like that from the guys in Vietnam when they got upstream and were like, boy, we made a mistake.
Yep.
Jed was curious, the one I messed up earlier, Bridgeport for cold weather training.
Yep, I did with when I was at First Recon Battalion. We went up and did that. Great training up there. Just you can never beat Bridgeport, whether it's summer or winter. It's just a great training area. It's just you get to really get into cold weather ops and learning how you're going to be able to survive in a cold weather environment. And then we did other places as well for our cold weather up in Utah and in Norway and other places. So, but Bridgeport's it's a manly event because you go from sea level at Camp Pendleton right up to there, and a lot of guys for mountain warfare, they'll do a physical fitness test the next day, and you go from up there to the mountains, you're sucking air and everything else up there. So,
man. Bridgeport, Connecticut water just when you say that it's cold.
Well, so this is Bridgeport, California.
Oh, Bridgeport, California.
Yeah,
then. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where our cold weather is up in northern California.
Wow. Okay.
But it's still the Pacific is still cold.
Oh, no doubt about that.
But you're right up in Connecticut. That water's a little bit more toasty there as well.
Northern California, then. Okay. Did not know there were two Connecticut's, Bridgeport. I mean, two Bridgeports like that. Very interesting. Again, learning something new. Did command show all your unit the Bo Bergdahl decap video before they sent you into Fallujah? I got ahead, but
Bergdahl was the Army specialist that walked off the camp in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. I was there during that Dust One incident. That's after I retired and I was doing what I did another 18 years. But so Bergdahl was that. I mean, there was guys that were killed and seriously maimed. The death group guy had his dog, Jimmy Hatch, who we were military freefall instructors together, a couple of doors down from each other. So, but yeah, that was Nick. What was his last name? The one guy that got decapitated by
Nick Berg.
Nick Berg. Yeah. So I think we all seen that command didn't do it. I mean, everyone seen it on online. I think that back then it was like orgish.com.
Yeah. God. I think I was in junior high or getting into high school, and just all the time seeing that. It was just, and then now dealing with what we've got now is just a whole different level of depravity.
Yep, it is.
Okay, so we went way off on a tangent, but we did get good information. So what is it like when you guys, I'm assuming now that the next thing popping up is Desert Storm, you said?
Yeah, we deployed. Like I said, I spent 3 years in Alpha, and then I got moved over to Bravo for Desert Storm. And I was one of the deep recon team leaders for Desert Storm out of Bravo. So we deployed. As you know, it was down and dirty and fast. First Recon Battalion, Alpha and Charlie, And then Delta, we reformed Delta at that time when guys were flying. And then Delta was the last company that flew over to Saudi and linked up. So we all deployed. We had OPs 2 through 5. SEALs had the OP1 on the beach, and then SF had from 6 on out to the Syrian border. So just, observing, we gotten some of the guys, like I said, my buddy Troy Mitchell took a bunch of rounds one night during when the mechanized brigade came into Kofji. The first force guys and one of the reserve platoons, they got left by their platoon sergeant, who is now in jail for life, thank God. And he became known as the Coward of Kofji, and those guys were on the roofs fighting, calling in air and everything. And
I've just watched a special on that on National Geographic, I think. Holy cow.
And then we had the guys on the OPs, my buddy Troy, when they were coming across, they were engaging. Those guys expended all their ammo to include their M203 rounds. And then that. So, I mean, you got a 6-man, 12-man out there in those OPs, and you got a mechanized Iraqi brigade. It's not a fair fight, but then you bring in the air and everything. That's when, unfortunately, one of the guys in my company, his brother Dion, was killed in that LAV from that friendly fire incident. So his brother had a bad feeling that morning, and then the chaplain came to tell him, and he had to escort his brother home. And then he was appointed to the Naval Academy and became a commissioned officer down the road from there.
Wow.
Yeah, great guy. They're a good family. Dad was a Force Recon Marine in Vietnam. His brother was the first Force Marine, Dion was, and then got sent over to 1st LAR and was in that LAR that got hit by the A-10.
What is LAR? I'm sorry.
Light Armored Reconnaissance. That's the 8-wheeled vehicles, the LAVs.
Okay.
So they were LAR, were their designator.
Man. And I wonder if this photo is that from Desert Storm or?
No, that's from OIF. That's us getting ready to go in '93 on the initial invasion.
I'll save that with those badass Mercedes in the background.
Yeah. Our fast attack vehicles, we called them IFABs, but they were Mercedes-Benz, our gun trucks. So I ended up going temporary duty from the military freefall school back to 2nd Force. And then Colonel Jim Riley asked me I was a master sergeant at the time, and gunnies were platoon sergeants, but he asked me and Chris Boyd to take platoons, and instead of going and working in the 3 shop. So 3 shop or take a platoon, that wasn't a hard decision. So that was that was the headquarters team out of my 2nd Force platoon that I had with the fast attack vehicles.
Wow, that is one heck of a photo. That is just outstanding. Oh wow, Jed said he was on the Syrian border for a few more months. He said, "Were you at Al Walid?" No,
I wasn't. Like I said, we had guys doing things. I was the battalion ops chief, so I was in between Fallujah. We did a couple runs out to Ramadi for the platoon that we had doing their stuff. But I mainly focused with the platoons in and around Fallujah at that time.
Wow. Oh, gosh. Jed was with 3rd LAR in 2006.
Okay.
Very cool. Dang, Jed. Learning more about you as we go along as well. So what, I mean, you've clearly scuffled, shot, and all of that. What was it like for your first time, shall we say, in the big mix-up of things with battle here? What was your first impression going out?
Well, I mean, like everything, you're training your whole life, right? And so, but it's the same. I think the same thing over and over again. It's like you're so used to putting rounds down range, you don't have them come back at you. So the first time when you got stuff coming back at you, it's kind of a moment of, reality. Oh shit, they're shooting at me, right? And so, but if you really truly train hard, your training kicks in. and it just, becomes, and to me is like, the more you do it, the more it slows down, and the more your senses come alive, and you're able to. And I mean, it's an adrenaline rush, I mean, so it just, and I mean, and it never changes. I mean, so you're jacked up. Back in those days, we used to have guys putting on gore and everything else, before they go out. So your heartbeat's already going through the roof, and you're ready just to go and start slaying and dropping bodies. But it's just, it's what we train for. It's what we do. And so, I always tell people, my daughter was a slow learner, so she married a Marine after she graduated from Arizona State. My son-in-law is a gunny at 365. He's the Osprey crew chief.
Wow.
And so, all the young Marines I talked to and soldiers, because of what I did after I retired, they all want to get into it. And you're always like, careful what you ask for, because you might get it, and it's not the Hollywood version, because you get to, unfortunately, you see the worst of humanity. You don't get to unsee what you saw. So.
Wow.
But there's evil, and you do one thing with evil, and you put it in the ground. You can't reason with it. You can't negotiate with it, and you can't appease it. And so you put it in the ground.
Thank God we've got men like you and the rest of the Marines and the Army and the Navy to fight that evil, because Lord knows there's more and more of it each and every day.
There is, and they will kill a liberal just as fast as they'll kill a conservative, but a lot of people don't realize that.
Nope. Some are slowly learning, but it's going to take a while.
It will. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, history repeats itself over and over again.
Oh, as a great fan of history, I love that saying. Gosh, I'm blanking on the author, but history may not repeat itself, but it sure as hell repeats the same notes.
It does, but with some people, it just repeats itself. So,
I think I might have found. I hope this is a Mew photo.
Yeah, that's we were out on that was the 11th Mew, First Recon Battalion, Alpha Company, 1st Platoon, in '89 on the Westpac.
Wow. What a solid group of guys here.
Good dudes. Real good buddies of mine, still in contact with. Lifelong friends. The platoon commander, when I lost my leg, flew out to San Antonio in 2017. That was 1989. Blake and I remained good friends, and he surprised me when I was out at Brooke Army Medical for the 14 months after I injured my leg and lost it.
Wow. The brotherhood within military units, and I've seen it personally more so with the Marine Corps. It's just unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable.
That's one thing, I will say, especially within our community. I've got guys that have been in SMUs, and they've been with the unit for over 15 plus years, and they'll still say it. They're like, hey, man, operations, money, training, everything else. But when it comes to their brotherhood, the tightest they have it is us. And they said, now, if you tell the guys that they're working with now, they'll still say it. And now I've had multiple guys say that we're at the unit is no one else's touches our brotherhood like we do.
I mean, that says something right there. And I know that's got to make every Marine feel good inside, knowing that the guys in the special mission units are saying that's pretty heavy duty right there. Wow. So are you gonna because as we timeline wise we see Somalia is on the way here. Are you completing any other schools, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, I went to airborne, static line JM, freefall JM, photographic intelligence. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
Just so I had just doing our normal, whatever schools came up and whatever training available. And, we did some stuff down in South America in between Desert Storm and Mogadishu. So we went down to Venezuela, worked with the Venezuelan Yopis did counter drug ops all the way down south off the Rio Orinoco into Colombia. We were looking for a lot of the precursors and that, and working with the Yopis doing that.
Wow.
And then we got back. That was out of Second Force. I PCS'd right after Desert Storm and went to Second Force and checked in. And then, like I said, we got a task in for South America. And then we came back, and I got moved into 5th Platoon, and we started our workup for Mogadishu with the 24th MU. And then I was a team leader. The platoon sergeant got in a car accident. So I was still team leader, acting platoon sergeant as a sergeant. And then right before we deployed, the MU colonel called me in, Matthew Broderick, a.k.a. Chompers, red-haired guy from Boston, Massachusetts, with a temper to boot, but I'd go anywhere with that man. He was phenomenal. And he literally called me in his office and he said, "I'm not afraid to put a buck sergeant in charge, quote unquote, in charge of a Force Recon platoon." And I was like, "Well, I'm not afraid to be in charge." He's like, "Good, you're the platoon sergeant, find your replacement." So I was able to deploy as a platoon sergeant in the Mogadishu as a sergeant with predominantly all sergeants in my platoon, which I thought was going to be easy deployment. Turned out to be the most leadership challenge deployment I did in my career.
Wow. That's a lot of faith from that Bostonian Irishman officer.
It was, and he mentored me, him and the sergeant major, and some others. They took me to the side and they mentored me, and it kept my sanity because a couple of guys in my platoon I wanted to throw over the ship at times. I feel really great. It made me a better leader in the end, because I made a lot of mistakes and just learned a lot about myself. So the guys, we went into Moog, proud as hell as my platoon, did great things. We had to see Huey go down, so we were the Charlie Trap. We were on that bird in under 10 minutes. Gandhi was the call sign of the captain that was in charge of that bird. And, he was happy as hell to see us when we got to him. And then just we spun up and just did a lot of stuff, and real proud of my platoon. Then we went back into the Med and did some Operation Deny Flight up in the Med, another Charlie Trap mission for down flyers at the time for Bosnia and Herzegovina. And then we went home, and then we got recalled for, we were home for a couple of days, and they recalled us for Haiti. But then all we did was cut gator squares, and they literally put the unit in soft guys on a carrier, and they replaced us, and we went home after cutting gator squares for another like 6 weeks. So we weren't too happy. We're like, either send us in or send us home. Make up your mind.
Sorry, here, not all up to date on my Marine Corps Navy lingo. What is Gator?
So when you got two parts of the Navy, you got the blue side and the green side. The blue side are all the warships, carriers, and that, right, and destroyers. The green side is the amphibs. So we call them the Gator Navy because they transport us. So the amphibs will transport the Marine Expeditionary units. And that's the Gator Navy. They're kind of the stepchild of the Navy. The blue side of them kind of look down on them. But the funny thing is when we hit ports with all the Gator guys and the blue side guys come in, they always run their mouths to the Gator guys, and then they get their butts beat. So the Gator guys love us because they know that we always got their back.
That's awesome. You guys are great. God, that's awesome. The Gator Navy again. Never heard of that. I've had to write that down. Y'all. That's one thing about the military: nicknames,
acronyms,
crazy nomenclature, acronyms. Y'all are unrivaled. Absolutely unrivaled.
And you got to know your target audience too, because you can't go out and spew acronyms and everything else without having to explain it. So it's always critical to know who you're talking to, if it's among ourselves, we'll drop slang all the time. But, when I'm out talking to other people, I got to make sure I explain what I'm talking about.
I almost have to give them a thesaurus or a vocab list for what you're about to say. Wow. So was there any big change going from battalion to force for you?
Yeah, at that time, because at that time period, everyone considered, battalion like JV and force like varsity, right? And that's literally the mentality it was for many years. So, we had different medals, mission essential task lists from battalion to force, but GWAT changed all that. But at that time period, there was, you got better equipment, you got better training, you got more advanced training, you got more taskings, flyaways, going places, counter drug ops, and things like that in South America, and doing things. So it was a difference. And we grew up with that mentality, right? Because the Vietnam vets, it's so funny because up until, the late 90s, early 2000s, that JV varsity stuff was still permeating. And yet we become a primary MOS shortly thereafter. And then because of GWAT, our METs fused, right? And then battalions started doing force medals. And yet the Vietnam guys wouldn't allow battalion guys into the Force Recon Association as voting members, but they would let support guys in, right? So I was part of the board of directors at that time when we finally got the bylaws to change, but it took 5 years.
Wow.
Because they're like varsity JV from Vietnam. And then with the 5th year, when I got a little upset, I told them, I said, you guys are a bunch of dumbasses. Because battalion platoons got attached to force companies, and force platoons got attached to battalion. You guys were fighting and dying and bleeding side by side.
Absolutely.
Yet you're acting like you didn't do that. And so they finally changed the bylaws, and because we evolved as an MOS. And so it's still funny because there's still some people out there with that mentality.
Oh yeah.
And they're not going to change.
No.
My era and everything else, it's different mindsets.
Every Vietnam vet I've ever spoken to that was force, again, some of them had battalion experience, but majority of them were just strictly force. And as you said, they were, third was first was transferred up to under 3rd Recon Battalion, and several vice versas. That they had no problem. The guys I spoke to, some of them said they did at the time, but that they had no problem because the guys, like you said, were getting out there, humping, calling in airstrikes, doing what they needed to do to disrupt the NVA and their Marine brothers. So,
and that's the thing, because there's no designator that shows between battalion and force. You're an 0321 back then. We were 86, 54, 53, 52. So it didn't say, oh, that's a battalion designator. It didn't work like that. You're a recon Marine. And then as we evolved and got smarter, just we know who we are and what we can do, whether it's battalion or force.
Thank goodness y'all did that. That's really good. I'm a part of the first and 3rd recon group on Facebook, and then the 3rd Battalion on Facebook as well. And I love seeing now the commingling of the force and battalion guys on there. It's really, really nice to see that they're really doing so well and getting along like they should.
Yep, absolutely.
Gosh, there was something with Second Force I was going to ask you with. Somalia. We spoke to Mr. Terry Duffield, and he was mentioning y'all were in Somalia, and of course, hot, dangerous, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But I've wondered and was curious why y'all were not attacked or nothing like Black Hawk Down. There was a chopper shot down. But why Black Hawk Down did not happen while y'all were there?
Well, because we were designated to cover the withdrawal of all U.S. forces. So this is post Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
And we got the AAR from the unit when they got back right before we deployed, and that changed a couple of things that we did. But the U.S. was withdrawing, which set a really bad precedence. Right?
Terrible.
Unbeknownst to at the time, Bin Laden was in there teaching them how to use RPGs for anti-air. And so, we let a third world country thug basically run us out, right? And so I remember Colonel Broderick, he was Brigadier General Select at the time, but I remember him, talking to the task force commander and everything else, because Broderick didn't play. April 7th, when we took over Tent Mountain, we got into a firefight, and they were denying the Cobras the ability to fire at the hotel where the snipers were. And, Colonel Broderick basically told the task force commander if he didn't clear hot his Cobras, he had his mule lined up at the front gate, and we were going downtown Mogadishu. And so they finally cleared our Cobras to shoot, so because it just, you don't tuck tail. And I mean, we've got so much history where we allowed, these small thugs to define national security for the United States of America. And instead of squashing them like we could have, we didn't. I mean, look what the unit and the Rangers did that night,
With no gunship support.
Without that or freaking hardened vehicles, right? They asked for it, and Les Espin, the Secretary of Defense, turned them down. And then they sent the MEU, who had all the capability, they sent them back into the Met. So, I mean, it's just political pressure. Politics should not be permeated into the military. We are there for warfighting functions. We are there to go smash the enemy, kill our enemy into submission where they go ahead and surrender, right? But instead, we're used as a political tool, and then we're restricted for what we can do. Anytime you have like Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq, where you can run off to different countries and have that sanctuary, you're not fighting a war, right? So, because I mean, we should have annihilated the Federal Administrative Travel Area where the Talib were, and the same thing when it comes to Iraq with Iran and Syria and everything else. And so, your rules of engagement. I always love when people want to talk about morality, and the most immoral thing we do is combat.
War,
right. So someone was talking to me about morality. I turn off the key. I'm not going to listen to it because it's real easy to talk about morality. And you know what? At least we have the common decency. We're not out there trying to kill women and children and use them as shields and hide behind them and everything else. War is hell. And innocent people get killed, which is a travesty. And I really, truly wish we could, and we do the best job we can to ensure that doesn't happen. But yet when the enemy uses them and puts them in situations to make that occur so they can get that PR win, and then the PR is basically the oldest freaking, job in history of the United States, other than one other, but they're very much coincide. They need that 10-second snippet. And then they try to make us look like we're the bad guys, and yet they're over there when the sheikh wouldn't work with them. They took the 10-year-old son and they cooked him alive and made his family sit down at the table and eat him. And yet we're the bad guy, right? Because they won't show that. It's too graphic.
No.
Right. And so I don't need to hear about morality in combat because you're asking us to do the most immoral thing there is. And then you want to question about how we do it. Right. So I like what Head just said yesterday. It's there to we go in and we break things. Right. We're not there to rebuild it. That's Department of State's job. We're in there to fight and win the war and do what we need to do to end it.
While we're actually bringing that up, Jed was curious. He said off topic, but now we're on topic. But at some time today, I'd love to know what you had to think about what Hegseth said yesterday. As an enlisted man, he agreed with all of it.
I did, because you know what? Social engineering is not part of the military structure.
No.
It has nothing to do with war fighting functions.
No.
And yet the left wants to push social engineering all the time. It's not for the betterment of the country. It's not for national defense. It's for their agenda.
It's for them.
And their agenda is not war fighting. Is not the protection and national security and defense of this country. And until we can, people can finally pull their heads out and understand the military is there for one thing and one thing only. We project force, we stop wars, right? When you show weakness, you embolden your enemies. And that's why history continually repeats itself. Look, from World War I to present, and watch what administrations are in power and what happens in the cause and effect, right? You got second and third order effects, and yet we continually do not learn,
No.
right? And then what does it do? It gets people killed.
I mean, all you literally have to see for history to moderately repeating itself is us leaving Saigon and then us leaving Afghanistan. It is literally, and it's just a modern turn with better aircraft. It is despicable what went down.
It truly was. I was my last 90 days. I got pulled up. I was working with the G3, 7, and 9 at US4A for the withdrawal plan. I was doing VTCs every single night and working with the colonel in there. And our planning process is nothing like we normally do, but the plan for conditional, withdrawal was all condition based. And then Biden took over and he wanted his 9/11 moment and he changed that, right? Jeez. And we withdrew all of the combat forces before the fighting season. And that did not give our Afghan allies any breathing room. Right. And so by the time the fighting season was winding down and we withdrew and we centered in Kabul instead of Bagram,
it run straight.
It was a travesty. And we lost 13 kids and we had dozens maimed and wounded, and there was no one held accountable for that. Department of State was so screwed up, slow to the table. General Scotty Miller, I love and respect that man immensely. In all of our Wexford guys, we worked and knew him. A lot of guys, served with him in the unit. He was in Mogadishu, the initial, as one of the young captains there with the unit. He was our last warfighter, man. And they tried to blame him and McKenzie instead of Biden and that admin for their incompetence. And so, there's a lot of us that we lost a lot of our brothers for that 20 years. To go out like that was that got us very upset.
Biden's plan, he overrid everything, and then for us to leave equipment, the Afghan Terps and people who worked with us, like we left the Montagnards, it just totally beyond the pale of letting down a country. Dual citizen.
American citizens were left. The equipment's a whole different thing because you know what? We transferred stuff. They already paid for a lot of the stuff. So when people start talking about the equipment, we were shredding. We had industrial shredders in Baldwin and down in Kandahar, and we were shredding things on a continual basis, because it's not cost effective to bring everything back to the States, put it in a warehouse, have to hire
destroying motors. And
so we're shredding stuff, and we laterally transferred a bunch of stuff to the Afghans, so the weapons, the vehicles, gun trucks, we already given those to them. Those are issued to them. Right. And so when they laid down their arms, then the Talib got it. But it's not like, that was like, oh, we left all this equipment. That there was a concerted effort that some stuff got flown out, some stuff got destroyed, and some stuff was laterally transferred to the Afghans.
Wow. Okay. Well, that makes clears up a lot of what I was wondering and thinking about there. That of course, me not knowing boots on the ground information, that makes a lot more sense. I apologize, guys. My phone is going crazy on vibrating. I know y'all can hear it. I apologize.
Mine too is. I apologize on that as well.
Oh no, it's fine. I actually just moved mine. So wow, geez Louise. So we have gotten through through Somalia. You've done some counter drug raids, which I'm sure that is absolutely insane. Dealing with, I'm assuming, cartel men, just other terrible drug dealers, murderers, and the like. Was Second Force tasked with going over to Bosnia for war crime work, or
So we did have guys operating out of there, out of the Muse, like I said, because we were doing deny fly, provide promise. So we had trap teams, we had other guys on the ground, and then when we sent the one Mew in, it was I think 2 Mews later in 96, 95, 96, when they went on the ground, boots on the ground, when they got the peace deal, and they put the Mew on the ground. One of our Second Force sister platoons was on that. And so, I mean, yeah, anything to do on the med side and all that, that was the East Coast guys that would handle that.
Wow. And heard some wild stories about getting the was it the Serbian war criminals? Was it Milotovic and all of them? Was that this time period that y'all?
Yeah. I mean, you had our soft guys doing a bunch of stuff there, TFO and the unit and those guys going after for the high value targets and doing that. So they were setting up the safe houses and getting things set up and rolling guys up right and left over there.
Wow, I can only imagine what it'd be like. There you are in your village or your favorite bar getting some vodka or whatever, and a van rolls up with some unit guys or task force guys jumping out, and you're gone, never to be seen again.
Yeah, there's some good videos there in Syria and other places where, ISIS is walking someplace and then the van pulls up and the unit guys snag them up and everything. So those are always good.
Wow. With that, are you still with Force Recon as first off, before we even mention GWAT and such, what is going on with you? Where are you, your team, or are you alone during 9/11? What happens at 9/11?
No, so I was 9/11. I was actually assigned to USASOC. And I was at a Yuma Proving Grounds at the Military Freefall School.
USASOC would be United States Army Special Operations Command?
Oh, that's correct.
Correct.
So
okay.
I was an instructor at the Military Freefall School, and I got moved over from the basic course to the JMs, and Joey and I were both the master sergeants over there, and Joey called me up in the morning and said, turn on your TV. And I watched the second plane fly into the towers, and we all got up, went to the Jumpmaster branch. We had a big old screen TV down there, and at that time it was CNN when they used to report news. And so we were all sitting there, and the students all rolled in, and we were all sitting there watching it, angry as can be, because I always tell people this, and this is true across the spectrum. The average American was like, thank God I wasn't on those planes. And we all would sit there and say, if only we were on those planes, because we could have had a different outcome. And so, because when the second plane hit and then they hit the Pentagon and then Pennsylvania with the field and that, we all knew we were going to war.
It's on.
And so, we were all itching to do payback, We killed almost 3,000, predominantly majority of Americans on our soil.
Civilians, no less.
And so we were itching to go to get a little payback.
I can imagine what a group of Special Operations Command members, Force Recon, Navy SEALs, the group at Yuma that you were working with, I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about it, but what was going through y'all's heads and what y'all must have thought seeing that and knowing y'all soon be over there doing something about it. Just wow. Just wow.
Yeah, I got in trouble because I asked to go. And then I ended up going temporary duty. And I reported back to Second Force at Lejeune, and I deployed. And by the time I was in Kuwait, there was emails flying around trying to figure out how I got there and where are my orders. And one guy told me I better win the Medal of Honor or otherwise I was going to get court-martialed. And this lieutenant colonel at Bragg screwed me over so bad it wasn't even funny. But that finally came out of the wash. So deployed for 6 months with Second Force, got back. went back to Yuma Proving Grounds, got orders to 1st Recon Battalion as the battalion operations chief, and then checked in the colonel and I knew each other from Desert Storm when he was a company commander at 1st Recon Battalion. And Colonel Talkington looked at me and said, "Hey, we redeploying. I need you to get us ready to get back there and get set." And I was like, "Check." And we went to work right away, and we got condensed pre-deployment training for the battalion. We went in battalion minus 2 companies, only 2 platoons per company in the headquarters. So we were literally under minus 200 men total. And at one point, we got all our attachments. We were plus 500 on the initial siege of Fallujah. We had LAVs, we had MPs, we had engineers, everything out of the sun that the RCT-1 Colonel Toolin chopped over to us. And just that was a great deployment, though. I cannot stress how my corporals and sergeants just kicked butt that whole 7.5 months of that deployment. I mean, we'd have AC-130s calling our operations center every night. We had OGA setting up with their ISR asset in our ops center, working across the spectrum with all of them and doing some classified stuff that we took over from an AOB and just the raid force, and just really proud of what we did. We did the first couple airborne inserts since Vietnam, the first hey-ho ever. And just we walked across, we crawled over the walls, we went in by boats, we went in by indigenous vehicles, by helos, you name it, we used it, and we kept the enemy off. And to walk out of Fallujah with just 1 KIA and 9 WIAs the whole time, that was pretty incredible, considered when you looked at all the other units and their KIAs. And we lost a young captain, Brett Morrell, great man, great platoon commander, awarded the Navy Cross posthumously from April 7th ambush that our guys out of Bravo Company, 1 platoon slayed probably around 50 plus AQI that day. And so 3 Navy Crosses, 1 posthumously, a couple Silver Star, a couple Bronze Stars, and several Purple Hearts. So the boys slayed them.
3 Navy Crosses and 1.
Yep.
Holy God. That man, that must have been a hell of a battle experience, whatever you'd like to call it. 3 Navy Crosses, and then the bronze and the silvers. That is wow.
Yep, a couple of those bronze should have been silvers with the platoon sergeant and the company ops chief. If it wasn't for those 2 and those young team leaders and those guys doing what they did, I mean, they literally charged L-shaped ambush because they were in the kill zone and it was a close ambush, and they literally, Captain Morrell ordered them to dismount and charge through. About a 50-meter open field, 8-foot berm, chest-high canal, machine guns, trenches, everything else. And between the team leaders and the platoon sergeant and Captain Morrell and those individual young Marines and corpsmen doing phenomenal stuff there. And then I was on the QRF. We got out about 40 minutes after the initial volley, and they were still fighting. So
the corpsmen, that's another group from Vietnam on that always need their due recognition. Serving with
those are our brothers, especially our special amphibious reconnaissance corpsmen. Our SARCs are they're hands down. They're I mean, you look at Doc Wilson, Navy Cross. You look at all my SARCs. Those guys are just phenomenal men. I'd go to hell and back for them.
Jeez Louise. When y'all first get your for the initial Iraq after 9/11, and you're spun up you're back with Second Force. What is because I can imagine, because my buddies had joined or would join a little bit later and very, very young, 19, 20. Were these Force Recon guys, were they all young, or were these seasoned?
No, I had, well, we had a couple young guys. One of them was, I did in the Marine Corps, you got to do a B billet, right? Drill instructor, recruiting, Marine security guard. So I got tasked for 3 years to do recruiting duty.
Oh.
And one of the guys I put in ended up being in my platoon for OIF.
No.
So yeah, Jerry. So when mom and dad came in from Michigan, mom heard that I took over as the platoon sergeant. She come up, hugged me. She's crying. She's like, I knew everything was going to be just fine once Jerry told me you were going to be his platoon sergeant. Wow. And when mom and dad left, I looked at him and said, don't you do anything stupid, because I am not talking to that lady for anything, And then at the end, he did get an emergency appendectomy and have to be flown out after we did the cessation of hostilities. And we were down in at the ruins of Babylon. And I watched him get his appendix taken out. It was pretty cool, standing on the outside with the window. And then he flew into Germany. So I called her and just said, hey, he had emergency appendectomy. He's fine. He's coming home. So I had a couple young guys, but a majority of guys are all, they 10, 12, 14 years.
Wow.
Very experienced platoon.
Wow. So that initial group of the early guys were grizzled vets, and you'd start seeing the younger, my generation guys start coming in 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even later, probably then.
Yeah. You. I mean, like when I went back to battalion, I had a bunch of young kids, right? But then I was really fortunate. I got some really good seasoned staff non-commissioned officers, our staff NCOs, and so we were given carte blanche by the colonel to get them the training that we thought was going to be imperative. So we worked with SWTG. At the time, Captain Andy Christian was the OIC there. And so we got all 4 of my platoons CQB qualified, which at that time was only Force. So they initially did it on the side. And then Andy said, hey, I'll give you certificates. And then they did so well that they literally gave them certificates and they were recognized. And then when we got home, that became SOP. And all the battalion platoons started going through CQB after that because of what those guys did that year. A lot of Force guys were mad at us because of what we were doing, but First Force was on the Syrian border. Second Force was they had a platoon down south. Scotty was the platoon sergeant, and Tad was the platoon commander. And they did great things with Grom, doing hits all over the place. But
the Polish guys, Grom? Yeah,
the Polish Grom guys, yeah. So Tad and Scotty had them attached, and they did great ops. And we centered Fallujah, in between Fallujah and Ramadi and Amaraya and Tower Town and what was north of us? The Food for Oil was just north of us, Carmel, and that was all AQI, So just hectic 7.5 months. I've never hit a wall. I hit a wall about month 4. I got totally lethargic. They had to medicate me because I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't sleep. And so I spent about a day and a half with the medical officer, our dive medical officer, giving me a bunch of different things against his medical opinion. And I finally fell asleep, and it resetted me, and that was fine. It screwed up my sleep rhythm from there. But, we were in contact every single day except for July 4th because we literally took that day off. And so, like I said, my guys are out there just doing great things that whole deployment.
Wow. Did you and we're about an hour and a half. Well, I won't hold you too much longer. I know 2 hours is a long time. When you as the years progressed a little bit and you went from having your 10, 14, 15 year veterans filling up a team, did you find it any different? Were you a little more concerned for the younger guys? Did it make a difference once you started getting guys my age, shall we say, in their initial warfare?
I like to think that I did that my whole career. I mean, I remember a captain gave me a fitness report once, my evaluation, And he told me as a sergeant, as a team leader, that my empathy could cloud my judgment.
Wow. That's
And
a good
he
thing.
thought that was a derogatory hit on me, and I took that as a compliment, right? Because, the Marine Corps is mission, right? Mission. Troops come after mission. I always believe they went hand in hand, right? Because if your men knew that you're going to do everything that you can for them, they'll always complete the mission, And so I always looked at it that, but the correct answer is mission, sir. But it's mission in your men. And so, do we all get older? I mean, my kids will tell you the difference between me as a dad and me as a grandpa is day and night. So I think we all do that, just because of life, changes and our experiences.
Oh, yeah.
And again, turn around. Here's this young guy. I put it in the Marine Corps, and next thing you know, we're going to combat together. So, you do look at things a little bit differently, but you still got a job to do. And you got to set aside your personal stuff and go do what needs to be done. Unfortunately, we ride the beast all the time. And unfortunately, the beast rides every once in a while. And I've got 12 names on my wrist. And I try to remind myself every day to be a good man in their honor. So.
Here. Absolutely. As we're speaking about the invasion, 9/11, and the beginning emphasis of the war, Daniel and Jed and some of the other guys were curious. Did you happen to know any of the Generation Kill guys?
Yes, I do. So that was the 03 deployment for Generation Kill with the guy. And again, I was with Second Force for the initial invasion, and then I PCS and went to First Recon Battalion. So Rudy Reyes, Cucker, Eddie Wright, all those guys, I know them well, still know them well. So I do know every single one of those young Marines from Generation Kill. And I had the pleasure of them going back into Fallujah with me in 04. And they had real solid leadership in 04 compared to 03. And those guys did phenomenal things in 04. And we didn't have the old he committed suicide not too long ago. The Evan Wright was the guy that was embedded with them. We didn't have it when we got back in 04. Me and the colonel and the operations officer were driving back from March Air Force Base, and the rear OIC called, and Evan Wright was there, wanting to see the guys, and we had him escorted off base because we
wow.
We didn't want any of that stuff, because that's, just the Marines are phenomenal. Just some of the leadership at that time period, allowing him to embed and then letting him choose, and then doing what he did. I would have never allowed that to happen. And Colonel Talkington and Brian Gilman, we were all on the same sheet. And then, when they called up, the captain called up, say Evan Wright was there, and Colonel Talkington's like, get him off my compound, so they escorted him off the base.
I cannot fault y'all for that. I hate to even say this. I did not read the book. I've just gotten it, but I absolutely loved the series and thought it was fantastic. It did show some bad leadership, but you can't help but fall in love with those Recon Marines.
That Sergeant Major was the one who was the coward of Kofji.
Oh my God.
Is in prison now for the rest of his life, and he deserves to rot there. So I've known him a long time, and luckily when I checked back into the battalion, he was retiring, and I was glad to see him retire, because I wouldn't have. It would have been a difficult 2 years if he stayed there. Him and I would have had some serious issues.
Jeez, yeah, I'm glad for all of y'all's sake he was gone. There's you and Godfather, I believe it.
Yeah, out in Brook Army. Spent the 14 months. He came out. He was SecDef. We were up in the Fats on the 4th floor at the Center for the Intrepid, and he took his jacket off, and we did some shooting. I remember too, the colonel's like, he picked up a Glock, and he had it all in the X-ring except for one flyer. And I watched him when he seen the flyer, and he wasn't happy with that. The colonel's like, he just picked it up. And I said, oh, no, he wasn't happy. He had a flyer. So, yeah, he came out there, and we talked literally about Fallujah in 04, because when we did the high altitude, high opening, the ACE did not want to support that mission, because literally 2 days before, we found SA-16s in a cache, and they were worried about our drop altitude for that hey-ho. So I was in the office with the RCT-1 Commander John Toolin and then Colonel Talkington and Brian Gilman, and we were sitting there. I was willing to go to 15,000 with walk-around bottles because we didn't have O2. And then finally it was like, this is Mattis. You will fly the mission as briefed. End of story. And everyone's like, yes, sir. So it was, and then he was talking about how the SEAL platoons and everyone was calling to try and work with the battalion in 04 because of what we were doing. So.
Wow. That, I mean, you're like Forrest Gump of of the Marine Corps. I mean, you have run into, met, and I mean, it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here with a famous Marine or something outstanding.
Well, you know, it's a small community, you know, so, and if you're going to be in it for a while, you're going to meet people and work with people and have the fortunate, you know, to continue relationships, you know, down the road with these men. And that's what, I mean, I'm proud of with the Recon Foundation and everything else. So still stay very connected and out there helping and assisting the community.
Absolutely. And we will be getting to some photos and then talking about the foundation here in just a moment as we start to close out. You had mentioned working for USASOC, and I'm just wanting to make sure here, actually, before I ask that question, after Afghanistan, did you find, was there another force tour, or were you beginning to get ready to?
So I retired, and then once I retired, I went and I was put on a very small team of former SOF guys from a company called the Wexford Group. So we were
that the first special warfare group? Or?
No, this is actually the Wexford Group was a bunch of retired unit guys that started the Wexford Group. So they hired a bunch of retired SOF guys. And we became what was called senior operational advisors. So we would work with units in pre-deployment, and then we would meet them overseas in Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, other places, in bed with them and work with them on trying to mitigate the threat to the force. So we were in uniform, armed outside the wire with these guys on missions. We would help them with sensitive site exploitation. We would do special activities. We worked across the spectrum. Sometimes it was really, really simple tactical issues, and then sometimes it was operational, strategic. So we would come back and forth out of Reston and Crystal City in Northern Virginia, and then we'd work out of there, do all of our out briefs and work interagency. And then we'd redeploy. We were doing 90 to 120 days in, 90 to 120 days out. And so I did that from 2007. I retired in 05, the end of 05. I did PSD for a year for a British company. And then I worked an ISR gig as the theater L&O. And then I got hired by Wexford. And I worked from them from 2007 to 2022.
Good Lord have mercy. Two things here. PSD would be personal security.
Yeah, personal security detail. We ran PSD all over Baghdad and the north.
Oh, so you're doing it in overseas for? Oh, yeah. Okay, wow.
Yeah. Worked for a company called Edinburgh Risk. And the client was actually Verizon. So we were supporting all the tower techs, the theater lead, and all of them going places, meetings, as well as the tower techs doing maintenance. So we do flyaways to north and south. And then they had, I think, 26 cell towers in and around Baghdad that we moved to pretty much almost every day and every other day.
Holy crap! I bet that was interesting.
Oh, it was. It was. Worked with guys I've known a long time, so that was nice. We were the Brits and the Aussies called us Team America, so just real good guys. And then I was looking for something different, and then I did a temporary gig for ISR, Intelligence Surveillance Reconnaissance manned aircraft, and worked out of the palace in Baghdad. And then I got called up by Wexford, and I interviewed and did the screening and got passed and went to work and loved doing that for the 15 plus years I did with Wexford.
Wow. That sounds like that was an interesting job, especially surrounded by so many guys that you already knew and the work y'all were doing. That sounds really, really cool.
It was a great, I don't even consider any of my stuff a career, but those two things between my active duty and in Wexford was great. I loved every minute of it.
That's outstanding. And was Wexford all over war zone work, or was it, as you said,
for our set guys, we were all senior operational advisors, so we were always in and out of combat zones for the whole time. And then they had other taskings for other support, operational intelligence support. Great company, took very good care of us. They were very, very mission men focused. So anytime we had injuries or life events happen, they always put us first and made sure our stuff was taken care of.
Wow. Love hearing that these aren't shoddy fly-by-night. Not that you would ever get involved with that, but I'm glad to hear there's organizations. You don't have to tell me. We spoke to a guy recently that had a hell of a first run with a NPC or whatever you'd like to call them, a mercenary group, what have you.
Yeah. Wexford is, everyone wanted to work for Wexford. We were very, very selective, and they used their RAS program that they brought from the unit. And so they were very selective. We probably went through, I want to say early on, we were doing probably 160 resumes to get one guy.
Holy cow.
It was an impressive RAS program early on, because of how they did it, And once you were able to see behind the curtain and everything after several years working there and working myself up to leadership positions and everything, it just, it was interesting how we went about the selection process.
That's fantastic. Yeah, clearly no shortage of people wanting to come, showing that it's a good job, a good place to work at. And then y'all being so selective like that shows that y'all don't need every Tom, Dick, or Jane walking in. Y'all are quite selective. In
a lot of the companies, it's all about the number. The government says you got to have X amount of people in theater, and they just go off of that number. When we grew, and almost every year we grew, they understood it was going to take us several months to be able to add those numbers. Because, and the government was good with that. And a lot of times they're not, because you get fined. But because of the way our contracts were written and everything else, they always knew that we were out there selecting the right people. So.
Wow. And that's why y'all got the leeway in the way the contract was, because evidently they even knew y'all were the primo guys to be working with.
We held the contract the whole time. And a lot of companies don't say that. It goes year to year. And we held that contract the whole time.
So. Wow. Yeah, that's a true testament right there. And I had forgotten, as we're about to hit the questions, and some people had some photo questions that I had managed to collect. What was the first special warfare training group? Did you mention working?
That's USASOC. So that's the schoolhouse, their dive school, the free fall school, for the SF, AS, and the Q course. So that's called the first special warfare training group.
Excellent. Bet that was quite a job to see, and all the all the future big operators coming through or trying to come through or already on the team getting sharpening the edge.
Great job. You get to skydive every day. You can never go wrong.
Oh man, if I still want to learn, I still want to force myself out of an airplane. I trouble enough even riding in them, but I swear I'd love to try and jump out.
It's the biggest adrenaline rush you'll do. It's I don't like heights, but if I got my 2 chutes on my back, I'm fine. It never scared me.
Well, that's good hearing that you don't like heights, and as long as you've got it, that's good hearing. Yes, PMC, I had dyslexia moment, not NPC. That's thinking of military pay stubs. All righty. I know inevitably I'm gonna find something that I missed. Guys, if y'all have got questions, go ahead and get them in. I'm gonna bring up photos in a second. But actually, let me do that, and then we'll close with questions while y'all are thinking of some. I think I had some from various war zones. I think that's an oil field burning in the back, maybe Iraq.
That's Desert Storm right there.
Wow. And is it like the movie Jarhead where they set everything on fire and it was literally black?
By 10 a.m. in the morning, it was just covered with the burning oil soot, and the visibility, all that stuff. It was crazy. It reminded me of, the end of times. The man upstairs was not happy. So
they did a good job in Jarhead. It looked like it was the end of the world.
And it really did at times, I mean, sandstorm kicked up, a rainstorm kicked up. It was like, it was like, it wasn't sandstorm season. It wasn't, the rainy season. And we got the dose of everything. So it was crazy times.
Man. Wow. The desert just so unforgiving. This one was, I thought might have been Mogadishu based on your.
Yeah, that was Mogadishu.
MP5?
MP5s, yeah. We had a mix of MP5s and CAR-15s. Thanks to the unit, because when they came out and they gave us their AAR, they rolled a lot heavy with MP5s as well. And the lieutenant colonel, the squadron commander, is like, hey, I recommend you guys get more CAR-15s. And we did. So I went to the XO and got several more CAR-15s for the platoon.
Wow. That I'm sure that's going to pop up. What was your favorite weapon? I'm sure sniper, you had a weapon or what have you, but all around, what was your favorite weapon in your time in the military?
I loved our MP5s, man. In the house and everything else, 50 meters on in, that's a phenomenal gun. We had SDs. Majority of our point guys and everything else, they'd always carry SDs for dogs and early warning detection. My first TO weapon, I was an 0311 rifleman, but I carried the M60 at 3rd Recon Battalion, right? So me and Nos Cedar were the 2 big guys in the platoon, and we both got designated the 60 gunners.
Naturally.
And so, M4 is a good weapon. Our MUSOC 45s, our pistols, I've always, a bunch of us are particular to our 1911s, our single stacks.
Mr. Terry spoke very highly of the MUSOC 45.
Yeah.
So very highly.
Duffer was a good shooter, a very good shooter.
That's what I've heard and also seen from some of his videos as well. Not sure where that was.
That was in the ruins of Babylon there. That was after the cessation of hostilities. We set up, we had a conglomeration that was the biggest force reconnaissance company in the history of the Marine Corps. Under First Force, 3 platoons from Second Force got sent over. Third Force, Fourth Force platoons got sent. I want to say we had a total of 11 platoons, which is normally a 6 platoon company.
Whoa.
And so we took over the palace is behind us, and we rolled in there first. And we were like, well, if we take the palace, they'll kick us out. So let's take the palm groves. I got up with the CBs. They made us the spigots there and sent the guys out in town, and they got some duck and chickens and goats, and we had a really first good meal in 3 months there with that big old that boiling pot there.
That is fan. Always love the stories behind the photos. They're always good. I'm definitely gonna have to save that and have it correctly laid out. There was one I thought was maybe you during your Force Recon days on base.
No, that's actually after I retired.
Oh.
I was embedded with 1st Raider Battalion.
Oh.
Company at that period. Company commander was then Major Andy Christian. Him and I were sergeants together at 2nd Force. So he asked for an advisor, and I embedded with their company, and that was in 09. With those guys. Great rotation. Bunch of guys that used to be with me at the battalion before I retired were in that company. So that was a great. And then Andy being the company commander was great.
I've spoken and we've heard from some of the guys that were in the initial group of the MARSOC Raider transition, and we may have to talk about the transition in closing, because that is literally one thing we did not bring up the whole time, and you actually know about it. So I think I'm gonna let me 2 pictures here, because there's someone I actually wanted to find out if it was Troy Mitchell or not, and then there's a picture of the man named Amos that I kept hearing about.
Oh, my best friend. So no, Troy's not in that picture. I'm up there in the center looking over my right shoulder. Yeah, that was my team. We were actually at Bragg doing some ops with SF there.
Oh wow!
And my team, we had a good op on those guys, man. They were not happy with this. So
putting it to them on their own home turf.
Yeah, that was a good time.
That's awesome, boy! Y'all looked decked out and ready for action.
Yeah, that was a good time there. So.
Did y'all get along pretty well with the SF guys all throughout your years?
Oh yeah. I mean, we worked with them a lot, and some of my closest friends are SF and Rangers, and so, matter of fact, a good buddy of mine, 10th group guy, him and his wife have been to our house since we moved back home to Michigan a couple times now visiting.
Oh, awesome! That's great. Love the 10th group guys. I think this was a photo you were tagged in, or maybe.
Yeah, that's that's Fred Bertrain, and I'm trying to see who's in the hammock there. I can't make that out. I think that's Fred. It looks like Fred. So.
No, I've got a photo of another Fred that might be. Y'all are in camo, and then I've got the photo of Amos, because I wanted to hear about him. You spoke very highly.
That's Fred right there, Bertrain. So that was in Korea, actually, during Team Spirit '89.
And what was that, a big war game situation?
Yeah, it's a big exercise we do every year, Team Spirit, with the Koreans and other of our host nation, other allies come in for a big exercise that we used to do every year in Korea during the winter. So it's miserable at times.
The Korean winter, Lord have mercy. And then I had one of Amos, and because I'd heard so much about him from your other an interview you did.
Oh, famous Amos.
Amos.
It was one of my closest friends. I was his escort officer in 2004 for Arlington when he passed away. He's the godfather of what we call the long card. It used to be called the famous Amos workout. And then it turned in, we had the short card and long card. And Amos would sit there and do calisthenics while we would all fall to the ground, wreathing in pain. And he'd be sitting there laughing, just continue going. The guy had tree trunks for legs, and he was just completely ripped. And,
is he the middle gentleman?
No, he's all the way to the right.
To the right over here.
Yeah, it's Amos to the right.
Oh, he looks like a beast. Wow.
He was a beast.
Wow.
So,
I can
and then
see
he used
why.
to tell all the kids, because his nickname was Famous Amos, and he would tell the kids he was the cookie guy, and I'm like, he's not the cookie guy. So,
I'm sure they were like, well, if you're the cookie guy, why didn't you bring us any cookies, man?
Yeah. Famous Amos Diaz.
That's great. Fantastic. And I will show one more, and then I'll let you close with the Recon Foundation. If you could also after tell us a little bit about the MARSOC transition, but I did not, looks like a rock maybe with the dam.
It was. That was the initial OIF in 03 in my Mercedes-Benz there, which was a lot more comfortable than a Humvee. I wish I kept that vehicle the whole time. So that was the initial in 2003. We were screening mission up north of Baghdad, predominantly a good portion of the time.
Jeez Louise. Yeah, I bet that Mercedes was just a godsend compared to a Humvee.
Oh, it was. We had seven gun trucks, Mark 19s, 50s, 240s. So
okay, I've taken up, I'm over the 2-hour mark, but if you could, as we close, could you tell us a little bit about what brought on the change from Force? And I know that could be a long one, but
it is. Shoot, that could be. I mean,
a whole show in itself.
It could be in itself. So we have what's called the Reconnaissance Operational Advisory Groups every year, the ROAG, and so we get together as a community, and we help shape the future of the reconnaissance community. So, at the time, General Jones had an agreement to be part of SOCOM. Because in '88, when General Gray was asked to give all the reconnaissance assets, he said the whole Marine Corps, none, which once he retired and down the road, he regretted that decision. He said if he could undo it, he would. But then General Jones made an agreement, and so we were trying to help the Marine Corps shape what MARSOC was going to be like. And we had our courses of action, Troy Mitchell and Joe Setlin. And to include a course of action, because the unit was telling us if we showed up with airframes, they'd build a compound right next door to them at Bragg, which that was one of the COAs. But General Hagee was the commandant at the time, and he was pushing his distributed ops, which tore to shreds, because basically it was our force medals, but an infantry squad. They were thinking that they could, get initial enlistment kids, this type of mission essential task list to go out and do, which tore them up because the JTACs, you got to be E6s and an infantry squad sergeant and below. So General Jones, General Pace pulled Hagee to the side. General Brown was the SOCOM CG. He didn't want to be the first CG with the Marine component. So him and Hagee were working together trying to stop MARSOC. And to where, at the time, the Secretary Rumsfeld, it was decided on with General Jones and General Pace and Secretary Rumsfeld that there was going to be a Marine component. But then General Hagee sent down the Council of Colonels, all of them recon haters. We didn't have one reconnaissance Marine enlisted or officer that was part of that planning cell. And the first 2 times they got thrown out of the Secretary Rumsfeld's office. And the third time he looked at Brown and he said, SOCOM's no longer a supported unit, it's a supporting. Reverse that. And don't you think it should belong to the best warfighter? And isn't the Marines the better warfighter when it comes to the ground? And so General Brown looked at General Hagee and said, give me FMTU and send your major down to give me my his after action from Det 1's deployment. And so Major Kaczynski at the time, retired now, Colonel Kaczynski, was the OIC of Det 1 forward. And he went down and briefed General Brown. Well, really didn't brief him. General Brown came in and talked for 15 minutes and got up and said he liked these conversations and left. And then the Council of Colonels, the first 2 numbers of the first number was like 26 0321s and then 50 0321s. And then what we had to do is we had to stand down 1st and 2nd Force 5 platoons out of 6 went to 1st and 2nd MSOBs, which are now Raider battalions, and 1 platoon each came back to battalion and stood back up the deep recon platoon. That was in 2006. And then 2009, the MEF commanders went back to the commandant and said, we need our force capability back. So then they re-stood back up force. But for the first 3 years, we raped Force Reconnaissance Companies and the battalions to stand up MARSOC. And so, but, you know, General Hagee didn't want it. And then he sent his council of colonels, all recon haters down there. And they were all dyslexic because we wanted to go to 8-man teams. And then when the TO came back, the table organization, instead of being 5 8-man teams, it was 8 5-man teams because they didn't have any of us down there. Matter of fact, they launched Troy Mitchell down overnight from the ROAG to go hand over the courses of actions and then put him on the plane to come right back. Instead of using him and his knowledge, these council of colonels, which the Marine Corps 0302 community think they their shit doesn't stink and the Marine Corps doesn't run without them. And little do they realize that that's the complete opposite. And one of the reasons I retired. But, you know, and some of my dearest, closest friends are 0302s and 0203s and other MOSs. But, you know, it's just the Marine Corps will screw up a wet dream. And if you try to help them, you know, you can't tell them what to do. So we always try to shape everything. But like when we stood up and we wanted to go to a regimental reconnaissance with senior and junior platoons, that was our proposal for MARSOC, because then all the apparatus of SOCOM would have opened up and the junior platoons still worked for division and MEF, and they would get better trained, better scoped, and tie in more into the SOCOM network. And the Marine Corps can't see that, you know. And so at the time, General Bedard came down and face shot at us, told us we were trying to build another SRIG, Surveillance Reconnaissance Intelligence Group, which last thing in the world, we were trying to build another SRIG because that was a debacle. But so, you know, Brown and Hagee conspired, and, you know, it came out to be. And then Fox was the first ones that went in with Fred and Al and Jim, and they were set up for failure. And they had a bunch of issues, and you had 3 extremely aggressive alpha males. And if the SOTF wasn't going to play nice with them, they'll go play by themselves. And basically that's what happened. And then they tried to say, you know, they lied about them, in which sense they've been exonerated. But it just, that was a whole debacle at the beginning. But I'll tell you, first and second Raider battalions, what they did in Iraq and in Afghanistan, all the soft guys I worked with, and then the Wexford guys that would embed with them, they were up on par, doing great things from the get-go, because those were senior guys that we stood up. But that's how that stood up and where they're at today. And now you got a CG that stopped supporting the smooths, which was the stupidest thing I ever heard. But again, history repeats itself because you put men in charge that have no clue and shouldn't be where they're at. You know, and so just the guys are doing great things out there. They could do more if you had people with vision for the future doing that. But you know, it's a joint world, and if you're not working joint, then you're not going to be effective.
I mean, like you said, they could screw up a wet dream. I just can't see how the Marines have waited and it taken this long, because from what I've heard, when the MSOBs and the Raiders and then now MARSOC got up and running, that even Det 1, that they were absolute hell on wheels.
They were. Every single general officer, regardless of service in 04, what Det 1 did was phenomenal. It blew their minds from trigger to sensor or sensor to trigger. And then all the support people driving and gunning. and then the 40-man platoon. I mean, the guys became the raid force, and they farmed guys out, and they did great things across the whole theater. And they wanted that, but because of pettiness and lacking vision, I mean, General Jones and General Pace had to go set, Hagee down and basically let him know that they're looking at 2025, 2030. And he was looking at, his vision of distributed operations, which they're still trying to come up with some conglomerate of that based off of, what General Berger started. And it's just, if you don't have vision and foresight, you're not in the right position. And unfortunately, we had people in positions like that didn't have it.
And especially in a situation where literally this was the changing of modern warfare that y'all were taking place in.
If they would have let us develop the Reconnaissance Regiment with the general officer in charge and have junior and senior platoons, it would have helped the Marine Corps so much more. But they still lack the vision and clarity on that. And the Marine Corps will never let MARSOC have the ability, because for a MARSOC officer, it only goes up to 05. So once you're in 06, you'll be spread out through all the other commands, and they bring in non-former MARSOC officers to be in those 06 positions, or they'll put in people that will toe the line and allow them to answer the two masters, answering the SOCOM and then answering the big Marine Corps. SF had to go through that growing path. The Navy, the SEALs had to go through that. And we're still going through that because they keep putting officers in there that they think they know, because the mentality was with Halleck, it was like, we're not special operations is what we do. Well, shut up, man. Shut up with the asinine stuff. Because you got to volunteer twice to go do that. Then you got to go learn so much more than the average soldier, Marine, sailor, and airman, right? And so that's why when it comes to duties and responsibilities, when you took sergeants from reconnaissance compared to the rest of the 03 community, we had so much more responsibilities and duties and tasks. We all got promoted all the time until we became primary, right? And the 03 community hated that because they looked at us as stealing quotas because we weren't primary MOS at the time. But, that's just the fact of the matter. We're not special. What we are is we're men that want to be challenged. We volunteered twice. And if we do our jobs right, we save Marines' lives. And big Marine Corps doesn't like that, and it's unfortunate because that is a near peer freaking counterinsurgency in the rear. All of that is encompassing. And if we went away from counterinsurgency because it's hard, and we went back to peer and near peer because it's easier. And yet they don't understand China and Russia and North Korea and Iran. They will use counterinsurgency operations in the rear. And if we don't know how to deal with that and do that, it's just we dumped all that data of 20 years of GWAT, just like we did in Vietnam. Literally, I was on a testing on this research in 2008 and 9. It was called IED Sensor 2. And I sat down with all these PhDs the first night at dinner. And the lead PhD, she looked at me, she said, Todd, we pulled all this data from post-Vietnam where the government paid millions of dollars to find out what made soldiers and Marines sense booby traps in the environment in Vietnam. She goes, we've validated all that data because now we're sensing IEDs in the environment, right? Because an IED and a booby trap is the same damn thing, right? It's an obstacle. Mm-hmm. And yet we rewrote doctrine and everything else based off of an obstacle, right? And so they validated all that stuff. So we had to relearn because they got out of Vietnam. They wanted to dump all that stuff and move on, right? So all that counterinsurgency stuff, small war manual and everything else that was there, they dumped, and we had to relearn everything that they learned, and we relearned it with lives and limbs. And then in 2014 and 15, we started dumping all the GWAT stuff. And I wrote white papers on this from the job I was doing. We're dumping all this data to go back to peer, near peer, because it's easier. And so That means our grandkids are going to relearn everything we had to do again the hard way. And that's shame on every GO and SES and everything else that's sitting up there in Northern Virginia, because they don't have the vision and foresight to do the right thing and understand the dynamics of the lessons learned, right? And it's just because we picked the wrong people to be in charge. And what Hedges said yesterday, again, goes back to, he's spot on. How about we start getting back to warfighting functions, period, and a statement.
For as lethal and as gung-ho and what have you that the Marine Corps is, and having Force Recon in Vietnam, I am just bewildered, at a loss of words, and flabbergasted that in the modern era, the Marine Corps will not put full force behind the Raiders and MARSOC, or MARSOC fully, and let them do what they've been doing effectively.
You still have people going through their professional military education, writing white papers saying the Marine Corps doesn't need Raiders, right? And disband them because they complete lack of vision and understanding the dynamics of the threats that we face, right? Because it's not the Russians coming down the Fulda Gap anymore. Right? This is a hybrid warfare. And if they don't understand that, embrace that, and know what's got to be applied and applicable, and start training towards that, then we're going to learn the hard way, and we already are. And and it's like, it's just so unfortunate that doing as long as I did and everything else I've seen, and we still have people that should not be in. God made bowling alleys for a reason, and when I listen to some people talk, I start going like this. Because that means they're in the wrong position. They should go get their finger sized and go pick up a ball and start another career, because that career is not for them. And it's just, this isn't a personality contest. This is about fighting and winning wars, period, and a statement.
Yeah.
And that's how we remain lethal. And that's why we have to get back to our lethal means, right? Take the politics out of it, take the social engineering out of it. And we focus in on making our warriors the best training and equipped, so that way they can go do, if God forbid it's needed, then they go do what's needed. Otherwise, they maintain that edge so the rest of the world sees that we've got the biggest stick, and we'll wield it if we have to. Prefer not to, but we will. If we do, we will come in full force. And if I was
violence of action,
that's exactly how my foreign policy would be.
Could not agree more with you. And I unfortunately have had you at 2 hours and 23 minutes. There are questions, but I will ask this one question that might save us all heartache and time. From Jed: please ask Top if he would be willing to do a part 2. I love this. Have buku more questions that I'm not going to saturate the chat with at the moment.
I'd be more than happy to.
Okay, because I was about to say I've got a laundry list that, after you just spoke about what you spoke about, of questions. So if you would be willing this month, next month, or whenever you get free time, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah, we'll offline. We could talk about that and everything else. But hit up the Marine Recon Foundation.
I was about to say, go ahead and talk about the foundation, and we'll shut down.
Our foundation, going on 13 years now, we stood up the foundation to support the community of our reconnaissance Marines, our special amphibious reconnaissance corpsmen, and the families. So our lines of effort is one, of course, our emergent needs for guys in distress, families in distress, losing guys both in training and in combat, and unfortunately to suicide. And then our historic preservation, right? So our lineage and our history is very, very important to us. We make sure we capture that. So if you see our social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel, as well as the Facebook, Instagram, and a couple other ones, at the bottom, you'll see all of our links to our social media. And then go to that. But then our emergent needs are our historic preservation, and then our reoccurring events of our Gold Star families and our traumatic wounded warrior teammates. We do retreats every year. A matter of fact, I leave tomorrow for our Destin, Florida, to support our wounded warrior retreat in Destin with several families. And then we always support our Gold Star families throughout the year. We got a big event coming up in November in Dallas, Fort Worth. We have the Warrior Classic. If you go to the events, all the way to the right. And that is our event page. So we got our Warrior Classic. We got our golf coming up in Pennsylvania. We're one of the top 6 sponsors this year of the Marine Corps Marathon. So we'll have our booth out there, and we'll be out there for the Marine Corps Marathon. We have a clay shoot in New Jersey coming up. And then we have our Warrior Classic and Marine Corps Birthday Ball in Dallas, Fort Worth. And then one of our young Marines that was killed in a tragic freefall accident last year, his family is doing the Sergeant Arsenblas Golf Classic coming up. So his widow, Grayson, is in charge of that. She's doing a great job to make sure she carries her husband's legacy forward. That gives us all of our events we got coming up. So if anyone's in Dallas, Fort Worth and want to come out to Marine Corps Birthday Ball, come join us. But I'm real proud of what the foundation does to support the community and the families. And we'll continue doing that for the foreseeable future because it's a dangerous job, but it's an extremely rewarding job.
I had known and followed the foundation for quite a while. I did not know until recently that you were so heavily influenced and a part of it until Mr. Rick Rabinold told me, Vietnam vet, member of the show, shall we say, and was just astounded, surprised, and quite happy to see what all the foundation does, not only helping families, helping Gold Star wives, helping fellow vets, but fundraising, getting out, getting the Marine Corps name out, conducting events, recruiting. And also, most importantly, besides helping the families, to preserve the legacy of former recon men from Korea, WW2 to Vietnam to the GWAT and even our skirmishes in between. It's just a outstanding foundation, an outstanding website and social medias.
I appreciate that. We're very proud. Our team works hard, exceedingly hard. We're all volunteers. None of us get paid. So all the money that we raise goes right back into the community. And we're very proud of that. And we work across, our network is wide. So we work across with NSW and the SF Association for suicidal ideations and trying to help guys through their distressing times. And so we've got a bunch of for-profit nonprofits that we use to get our guys into counseling, to get them into inpatient treatment. Work with the VA a lot because that's a bureaucratic nightmare, and we've got to stay on them so those guys are able to get the help that they need.
Absolutely, and I can speak from experience. And my dad was 100% disabled and had most of his stuff taken care of, but even getting in to see the doctor and all that is a nightmare. So knowing that y'all are there to help vets who are just now getting in the process of getting in and associated with the VA is a huge help, because it's a nightmare and can discourage vets from even wanting to be a part of it, because it's
for many years that was their goal. There was a lot of people that employed by them they worked hard at not doing their job to get these guys so frustrated they just stopped. And that is, to me, is criminal and a travesty. And, I'm really glad that Trump got the first law in his first term passed, and they fired quite a few, but there's still quite a few that need to be fired. Right. And Secretary Collins keeps that up and continues building upon it and improving upon it, because it has gotten better. But we still got a ways to go. Absolutely.
And I can't think of a better way to end with those great words. And of course, I knew the chat would say, please, got to have him back. You heard it, guys. We're definitely going to get him back. We will speak offline about that. But if y'all don't have any other questions, well, we've knocked out enough. If you didn't have anything else to say, I should say.
No, I appreciate it. I look forward to carrying on the discussion.
Excellent. Well, guys, we've had a great 2.5-hour show for the week. I will talk offline, and we will set up a part 2 to handle some questions. Hope everyone has a great day. And Mr. Todd, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
It's
for having me,
been
bud. I
the
hope
world.
you guys have a great week and great weekend.
You too. Thank you,
Talk
sir.
soon. Okay.
Bye-bye.